Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today we're going to learn a new updated method for creating neon text effects in Photoshop. Now, I have done a neon text effect tutorial in the past. There's a link in the description below to that video, but this new updated version will make the neon text look a little bit more realistic. So, a couple of assumptions that I need to get out of the way before we begin. Number one, I am using Photoshop CC 2017. So if you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, some of the effects may not work as expected. Second, I am using Windows. So if you're using a Mac, when I say hit the Control key on the keyboard, that means hit the Command key. And when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started by hitting Control N on the keyboard to bring up the New Image dialog box. And let's name this New Neon Text Effect, because as I said, we've done it in the past. Width is 3,840 pixels, height is 2,160 pixels, resolution 150 pixels per inch, RGB color mode, 8-bit, background contents, doesn't matter, we're going to be changing that. Our color profile is going to be Adobe RGB 1998, and pixel aspect ratio is square pixels. Once we have all of that, hit create, and we are ready to begin. The first thing that we need to do here is we need a background for our text to sit on. Now you can use any background that you find attractive. I'm going to use a wood wall with which I have a link to in the description below, and you can download the exact same background and follow along. So let's grab that by clicking and dragging it into our image. And as you can see, it nearly fills from top to bottom, but is nowhere near close enough to left and right. So we're going to resize this by hitting Shift and Alt on our keyboard, and then clicking and dragging out from one of the corners to constrain our image to the same aspect ratio as it is supposed to be, and resizing it. Now, once you have it resized to about this big, all that you need to do is hit enter on your keyboard and you will have a wooden wall. Now it doesn't fill the sides, but we'll fix that by duplicating this layer and dragging it out to cover the entire background of our image. So let's click and drag to the left our wooden wall, and then let's hold down Alt on our keyboard to, and you'll see that our arrow changes to a black and a white, which means that we will duplicate the layer when we click and drag, and then holding down Alt, we click and drag to the right, and you will see that we now have a new wall right here. And there we now have the wall filling our background. Once we have that, we can get rid of the two layers that we have here and make it just one layer. So the way that we do that is we click on our top layer, then hold down Shift and click on the second layer, the wood wall and wood wall copy, and then all that we need to do is hit Control and the letter E on our keyboard, and that will combine them into one layer. Then let's just rename this so that it just says wood wall, just to keep things nice and neat. And we no longer need our background layer, like I said, so let's just click and drag that down to the garbage. Okay, we now have our background almost ready to go. Now I'm going to make this look a little bit punchier, a little bit better for our neon text to sit on. And you can feel free to follow along with this because it's pretty easy to do for whatever background you might have. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to give this a new levels adjustment layer. So let's go down here to our levels adjustment and click on levels adjustment, and then we are going to punch up the darks to make this look a little bit more vibrant. Now for this particular background, I have done the math, and we want here is 30, and we want this to be 1.9. And this is kind of the effect that we're looking for. It's much punchier. It looks like it's got a harsh light on it all the way across it. And whatever background you're using, whether it's bricks or just a painted wall or wood or whatever, you want this kind of a look. And that's because we're now going to darken this and then just have a strip where our text will be that will look lit with this kind of washed out, punchy background to it. So here we go. We are now going to add in a new curves adjustment layer. So we're going to go down here and we're going to bring up our curves adjustment layer. And what we're going to do is grab this little corner up here in the upper right. We're going to drag that down to the black line right here. And that gives us our dark background upon which our text will sit. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we are on our curves layers mask. Okay, or you can just click on the little mask icon up over here. And then we want to go to feather here, and we want to write in here 175. And what that will do is any selections that we make in our mask for our curves layer will be automatically feathered by 175 pixels. So we no longer have to do that with our tools. It's automatically done for us. So once that's done, you can just close that. We aren't going to be doing any selecting or masking yet because we don't have our text placed, so we don't know where to mask just yet. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start typing our text. Now in the description below, you will also find a link to the font that I am using for this particular tutorial, but feel free to use any neon-like font that you might find on the web. Okay, so the font that I am using is called Neon Glow. So let's get to our text tool by hitting T on the keyboard or by clicking on the text tool over here on our toolbar. And what we want to do is bring up the character palette. Now you need to bring that up. You can go here to Windows, you can go to Character, and it will pop up. And then we need to mess with a few options. Now you want to make sure that you have your font chosen. I'm using Neon Glow, like I said. The size is going to be 275 points or large enough to fit most of the screen. The spacing between the lines of text is going to be 275 also. Don't use automatic because it will space out a little bit too far. So try and keep it as even as possible, especially with this particular font. The kerning that we want here is going to be 25 for this particular font. That gives you nice spacing and you don't then have to mess with the kerning after the fact. Okay, and the other thing that I'm doing down here is I'm using all caps. Feel free to use that or not, depends on what you want. Now, the important thing here is the color. My particular tutorial here is going to be a purpley kind of, a pinky purpley kind of neon effect. But if you wanted a different color, what you want to do is you want to start with a very light version of the color that you want your final neon text to be. So the color that I'm using here is this very, very light pinkish purpley kind of color, and that is F8D6FE. As you can see, it's very lightly purple. Hit OK, and then we have everything that we need in order to begin. So then we can click in our on our image and we can write in our text. And as always, I am using Pixel Magic for my text. And as you can see, the kerning here is pretty spot on at 25. So that's why I did that. Then hit the check mark once you are ready to go. Let's go back to our move tool. I'm just going to move this to the center of my image here to make it easier for everyone to see everything. All right, that's good enough. Now, the next thing that actually, let me just make sure, yes, we are centered. So the next thing that we're going to do is go back to our curves layer here and the mask on our curves, and we're going to highlight an area behind our text so that it looks like it is lighting the wall that it's sitting upon. So we're going to do that by going to our marquee tool. Now, you can get there by hitting M on the keyboard or by clicking up here and going to the elliptical marquee. That's the one that you want. And then we're just going to draw a very large oval right over our text like so. Once you have an oval that covers up most of your text, you want to click on the inside of that, and then you just want to make sure that it's centered on your text. And as you can see, it is centered on my text, so I'm ready to go. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you're on the mask, and you want to make sure that you have your black and white ready, because what we need to do is hit Control Backspace on our keyboard, and that will fill this selection with black. As you can see right up here, we have our mask is filled with black in the selection area that we have here. And once you have that, the background of our wood is nicely brightly lit. Okay, we can hit Control D on the keyboard to deselect now, and we are done with our curves. We can go back to our text, and now we're going to give our text the neon look that we've been waiting for. Now, like I said, I have used all purple or very light pinkish kind of colors for my neon text. If you want a different color for your neon text, just use that color's equivalents for your text. So if you wanted, say, green glowing text, just use dark and light greens, similar to what I'm using in these purples. Okay, now let's just move on and give you the neon effect. Okay, going down to our layer styles, we're going to start with a bevel and emboss. And let me move this so that it's out of the way here, and you can see what we're doing. Now, bevel and emboss, we want inner bevel. We want the technique to be smooth. Our depth is going to be 100. Direction is up. Size is 21. Soften is 3. Shading is going to be, make sure that you have Use Global Light unchecked. I say this every time, but Use Global Light is, in my opinion, fairly useless 99% of the time. I actually don't know anybody who really uses Use Global Light. If you do, that's great. I just haven't found it to be very useful because I constantly need to change the light source to achieve different effects for my images. So I always uncheck that, and I suggest you do it too. Angle is going to be 135 degrees. Altitude is going to be 55 degrees. The gloss contour that we're using here, that is going to be what is this? Ring double, I think. Yes, ring double. Anti-alias is checked. Highlight mode is going to be linear dodge add. And the color that we're using here, again, is that very light purple F8CEFF. Slightly different than our text color, but close enough. The opacity is going to be 100%. Our shadow mode is going to be darker color, and we're using a very deep, rich purpley color, which is 4E1555. And the opacity is going to be 60%. Okay, the next thing that we need here is the contour. The contour that we're using here is going to be Sawtooth 1. Anti-alias is checked, and the range is going to be 100. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we need to give our text a stroke that will help sell the neon look of the text. So let's give it a nice little stroke here, and the size is going to be 8. Position is going to be outside. Blend mode is going to be linear dodge add. Okay, the opacity is going to be 100%. Overprint is checked. Fill type is going to be a gradient, and it's a custom gradient. So the way that we do that is we just click directly on the gradient. Okay, and then we go up over here, and we're going to make sure that this is opacity of 0 and location 0. And this guy up here is going to be opacity 100 and location 100. And this guy over here at 0 is going to be a color of F2ABFF, which is, again, a very, very light purple. And the one over here is going to be a medium purple at location 100, and that is going to be an EA7AFF. Okay, then we're going to use reverse is unchecked, align with layer is checked, shape burst is the style that we're looking for, angle is going to be 90 degrees, dither is unchecked, scale is going to be 100%. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give this an inner glow. The inner glow is going to make it look more like neon glass. So we're going to click on, first we have to hit OK, sorry. And then we're going to go to inner glow here. And we are going to make this a blend mode of normal. Opacity is going to be 50%. We're going to have a noise of 0. The color that we're using is this richy purple here, which is A823BF. Hit OK. Technique is going to be softer. Source is going to be edge. Choke is 64%. Size is 11. The contour that we're using here is this guy over here, which is called rounded steps. Now, if you don't see rounded steps, go up here to the little sprocket. Scroll down till you see contours. Click on contours. It'll say replace current contours with contours from contours. Hit OK, and then you'll see all of these different contours that you can use. Anti-alias is checked. Range is going to be 80%. Jitter is going to be 2%. That gives us just a little hint of some kind of speckle or dirt in there. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give this an outer glow. Okay, so we're going to click down here under outer glow. Blend mode is going to be normal. Opacity is going to be 70%. Noise is going to be 0. Now, the color that we're using is a brighter pink. So that is going to be E13DFF. And again, if you're using a different color, just try and follow along with where I'm placing my color choices. Just use this, like if you wanted green, just make sure that your green choice for this color is somewhere in this range up here. Hit OK. And then technique is going to be softer. Spread is going to be 10. Size is going to be 25. Contour is linear, which is the very first guy, the default. Anti-alias is checked. Range is going to be 55%, and jitter is going to be 4%. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in 4 different drop shadows. So you need to do a drop shadow and then hit the plus mark next to drop shadow 3 more times to get these 4 drop shadows. Now the topmost drop shadow is going to be our actual shadow for our neon. Okay, the blend mode that we're using here is darken. The color that we're using is all zeros, which is pure black. The opacity is only 55%. That's just a hint of the shadow once all the lights are on. So angle is going to be 135 degrees. Remember, uncheck that use global light. We don't use that. Distance is going to be 21 pixels. Spread is 15%. Size is going to be 10 pixels. Contour is going to be linear, which is the default again. Anti-alias is checked. Noise is 0. And layer knocks out drop shadow is checked. Next drop shadow below our actual drop shadow is going to be start of our glow for our text. Okay, and the next 3, this one, the second to last one, and the very bottom one are all glows for our text. And that's because you can't have multiple outer glows, and this just makes it very easy to do our glows for our text. Now, this particular one is going to be a blend mode of screen. The color that we're using is a darker, richer purple, which is 9F00BC in my case, but use whatever the equivalent for your color is. Opacity is going to be 80%. Angle is 0. Use global light unchecked as always. Distance 0. Spread 0. Size 75. The contour that we're using here is going to be ring. And ring is this guy right over here. Okay. Anti-alias is checked. Noise is only going to be 5%. Layer knocks out drop shadow is checked. Our next drop shadow on our list is going to give us more of that glow on the wall behind us. And the blend mode that we're using is color. And the color that we're using is the same color as before, which is 9F00BC. So if you're using a different color, say green, just make sure that you copy that particular color for each of these 3 drop shadows. Okay, hit OK, and then the opacity is going to be 80%, angle 0, use global light is unchecked, distance is 0, spread is 55 now, size is 210. Contour here is going to be this guy right here again, which is our rounded steps. Anti-alias is checked. Noise is 0. Layer knocks out drop shadow is checked. And our final drop shadow here, which gives us just an extra bit of glow, is going to be a color blend mode. The color, again, is going to be that same 9F00BC. So remember, whatever you used on these other 2 is the same one that you're using down here. Opacity 50%, angle 0, use global light unchecked, distance 0, spread 90, size 250, linear, anti-alias is checked, noise is 0, layer knocks out drop shadow is checked, and we are done. This is now our neon text effect in Photoshop. And remember, the text is still fully editable. So you can go in and change the text to whatever you might need, and the effect stays with it. You can also save this effect as a style and then apply it to any text or signage or anything that you might want. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe. I do new tutorials every Tuesday. And once again, this is Geekman signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.